It's actually quite a rare opportunity that you are experiencing here, or occasion. Could you please, thank you, and go a little bit back. I could go back myself. If I can't. Yeah, I have a computer science degree, but I'm not good with computers. Often people come and ask me, could you go back in the slides manually, please? Just with using the arrow. Often people come and ask me about things they should have help with in Word, and I say, why are you asking me? Because I only got a computer degree. I don't know how to use it. I know how to make it. Hi-ho. It's quite an occasion, this, because I normally stand here and sing. I think I observe some of the enormous traditions of pastors' wives. I do engage in the musical fun in the church. And then I also tend to, be, is it called subservient? Obedient? Let the head talk. Be the wife I am. So I normally don't speak that much in church. Last time I did was actually in Jamaica at GAiN World. Should we call it GAiN World? Yeah, GAiN World. Yes, that's 3 years ago now, so here I am again. Today I will be talking about e-learning, and is it relevant for gospel teaching? And you do know now that I am a lecturer at Reading University. My research has been in e-learning for 9 years. I also teach. I teach Java, advanced computer programming in second year. Human-computer interface, which is about can we actually make programs that people can use? You would think that's an easy question to answer. Yes, we can. But no. We are geeks, and we do not appreciate that non-geeks do not think the same way as us, so we have to teach this. And then I also teach an AI course called Evolutionary Programming. So I have great fun with that. And through my teaching, what I try to do is use e-learning to engage with students in a, should I call it, more modern way. I have an online course as well on a platform called futurelearn.com, where I teach programming for beginners. So if you want to look and see if programming is for you, I can highly recommend going there. We have 34,000 students right now, starting in this week, learning programming by creating a small mobile game on Android. Do we dare try the video? Just so you see what it's about. This is a word from our sponsors. I'm after all working for the university, so I thought I should bring in a little bit of an advertisement.
Many games, and every single time I play my nieces, I win. I also love coding. For 30 years, I've been coding. I started on my Amstrad, but right now, I'm currently working on Android games. Teaching is another passion of mine. I've taught thousands of students how to program, and that's why we're here today. Through this course, I'll introduce you to programming. Programming is everywhere. In dishwashers, hi-fi systems, cars, even space shuttles. But it's not rocket science. Together, we'll be developing an Android game. It will be challenging, but fun. When you finish this course, you will have a mobile game that you've developed yourself. You will have looked into the world of programming and taken your first steps as a programmer.
Thanks. It's quite strange to see yourself on that big screen, actually, but there we are. So I do a lot of practical work in e-learning as well, and therefore you would probably expect me to talk about practical things with doing e-learning, but I'm not really going to do that today. The reason for that is that there are so many different ways, in a practical way, that you can engage with e-learning. So it doesn't make sense for me to present how you do it, because there are thousands of ways you can do it. But what you can't do is to create a pedagogy behind the e-learning that doesn't work. Well, you could, but then your e-learning will not work. So I'll talk a little bit about the theories that you need to think about when you are creating e-learning. And to look at theory, we also have to look a little bit at history. But before that, we should perhaps ask the more fundamental question. Should we at all think about e-learning today? Because we, after all, are here to talk about gospel teachings or evangelism or using technology. And I think actually, yes, we should. Because doing evangelism is about conveying information and for people to understand this information and perhaps also bring it into their own life. Well, perhaps, actually, that's the whole point. And change. And to some extent, that's also what I try to do in my teaching. But there are differences that we have to observe when we are thinking about this. For instance, I rarely get any followers in my teaching. It's unfortunate, but yeah, I won't get people who are prepared, as Ray Dabrowski said yesterday, to sell, I was almost going to say their soul, but at least give away all the money and go on mission trips. We have evangelists in computer science, but they are well paid. So we don't get that, but that's something we have in the churches, and it is something that we can utilize when we are creating e-learning, of course. So that's one thing that we have an advantage. We don't have what I would call the stone effect. The stone effect is the effect that the stones will start talking if we don't do it. That can become something that makes us sleep, and it shouldn't. But it's actually something that I'll say the Holy Spirit is not really well known either in computer science. And I think that's something we also have to remember, that actually we are trying to do something that is at some point fundamentally different from what I'm trying to do. Nonetheless, we can use a lot of the theories from teaching. I also very, very rarely talk in objective truths. We have them a lot. I hear a lot of people at least talking about objective truths. But in my teaching, I don't do that, and there's also quite a difference there. Okay, so the history of e-learning, or learning, should I say, 101. It started way back in the old days, when I will not go into, because that could probably start wars. But at least in Greek, we had mentors that were trying to mentor other peoples to learn more and find out what is knowledge, what is life, and how do we understand the world. That's a complete different way of teaching, a one-to-one thing, and yeah, they probably had theories about it, but we don't know much about it. Paul, I bring Paul in here because actually it's quite nice to know that one of the best distance learners in the world with most followers was our Paul. He did blended learning. He definitely sent a lot of letters to teach people at the distance. So we are standing on a good spot. This is me, where I lived a good long time. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, actually I lived here for, was it 21 years, Michael? That's my brother down there. 21 years, something like that. And it looks pretty much the same, I'll say. The reason why I have a red circle, if you're colorblind, I'm sorry. But the reason why I have a red circle, that's because that's a school. And why that is important? Well, it's important because it looks very much like one of the factories that you'll see down in the south of the town. There's not really a difference in the buildings and how they're set up. And that's because education has been turned into something industrial, in an industrial scale. The Industrial Revolution meant that we were starting to teach people to work in industry, to think like in industry, creating people who are good to work. Now, things are changing a little bit, and we have a different way of living. Industry is not that important anymore. And we also have seen that change in our e-learning. We've gone from having PDFs that tell us things that we read, perhaps even put things into them, because in PDFs you can put information in as well, into something completely fundamentally different, where we are trying to use the fact that everybody can use their devices anywhere, any time, and in any way they want. It's also scary that they can actually do it in any way we want, because we are losing control, but we have to somehow harvest the energy. So some theories. We have to get into the theories. Well, one of the most fundamental theories of learning that is also used a lot in e-learning is instructivism. It's a very simple thing. You have somebody who knows something, somebody of authority, your teacher with the ABC, and he tells you how it is and you follow. Cake recipes, good example. You want to learn how to do a cake, you have a recipe, you follow it, and there you are, you learn to do a cake. The problem with that, though, is that you only know how to do one cake, that cake that you had the recipe for. You rarely get to learn very deep if you do this type of learning. I have seen a lot of this in the church, using instructivism, I'm fortunate to say. We often, I think, are very good at saying this is the way we should do things, rather than thinking about it. The problem with that is that we then lose out on the deep aspects of the knowledge that we are trying to convey. A more scary kind of learning is then the behaviorism. Behaviorism was invented by Skinner. His idea of the world was quite dark. There's no free will. Everything is actually formed by others. And it's the benefits and the hurting things, the carrot and the stick that forms you. So if I give you a carrot for doing something, you know it's a good thing and you'll do it again. If I throw a stick in your face before doing something, you will learn the opposite. Why am I mentioning that? Well, I will not talk about the church there, but I can definitely say that it is also used in e-learning. And I would rather think about this, the carrot there, because actually games, if you play games, some of you might play games, achievements in, was it the Smurfs you were playing? Are there Smurfs in Smurf there? You will have achievements you do. And you get, woo, I have won whatever Smurfs will win. And you get happy. That's the carrot, and you keep doing it. In the famous game with birds that are flying into buildings, you can hit a star, and you get a star, and you feel good. Now, what the star helped you to do is to see you can actually break buildings in another way. Wow, I learned a new way of breaking buildings. I should use that in other levels. It's a way of reinforcing some behavior. It can be a powerful tool, but on the other hand, do you really then learn it because you want to? Will you become a better person? Will it actually be yours, your behavior? What is often happening is that if you are using too much of a behaviorist way of learning, it doesn't become yours. You do it because you were forced to. So if you are at some point in life are forced to think differently, you're very prone to change because you've been enforced to it. So it's something that we can use in our designs, but be careful. Objectivism is what we do a lot in universities, so we're very comfortable in that. Objectivism is to try and model the world in a way that makes sense, using symbols. We think of the mind as a computer. We just send these symbols somehow in a nice way to them, like I'm doing right now. I'm talking to you. I'll usually just talk about how computer programs are blah, 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 blah. And by you thinking about it, receiving these symbols, you will know the knowledge. I might have said that a little bit condescending, because the problem with that is that, of course, we do not know what happens in your mind. I might be trying to create some teaching material that is really, really good, but I do not know what's happening in your mind, so you might misunderstand me, and it can be very hard to know whether you misunderstood me or not. It is, however, a powerful way of doing it. I think the church has been doing it well, but we are forgetting the human side of things, the behaviors of people, the more reflective, perhaps, way of learning. And that brings me to constructivism. It's a newer way of learning. It's a most postmodernism, if I'm allowed to say that here, a way of learning. So it's the idea that actually knowledge is not always just knowledge. Knowledge is something that you construct. It's the Lego way of learning. I know that a building needs to have, I don't even know the name of them, but if I create a building in Lego, and it's a big building, and I want a roof, And if I don't have something to support the roof, it will fall down. I need something to do that. And I know buildings also have that, because I have created loads of buildings in Lego. I know that a car needs wheels and springs, blah, blah, blah. I know that because I created it. How did I create it? Well, I was playing with it. I was constructing the knowledge as I played. I constructed it from things, and I did it. I created the knowledge. That is a very powerful way of learning something, if you try to do that. I try to do that in my Future Learn course that I showed earlier. After all, I give them a game, and that game I use, in that game, they start out with a ball in the middle of the screen, and it can roll away. That's annoying. The ball goes away. So I introduce the concept of an if statement. An if statement is something that we can check a condition and do something differently. So I teach them, if you change it so that you check where the border is, you can then change the course of the ball, and it will stay on the screen. You see what the code does. You understand it better. If you see it, you don't have to understand it with your mind. You actually see the ball staying on the screen. That's a more powerful way, and you remember what you did, and you learned it. If we can then do that in a social setting, do it as group work. You might be annoyed when you went to university or school or wherever you went to learn, to be put into groups and do group work, because you could sometimes feel that you were, doing the load. But actually, it's a very nice way of learning, because it means that not only do you construct the knowledge on your own, but there might be serendipity. You might learn from others. Other people are learning something else, and you're like, hello, that worked well. Actually, yes, I should put that supporting roof on the roof, because mine are always breaking down. So that other person did it. So you are actually learning it together. Obviously, that is much more powerful if you have a network and do it with a lot of people. We have those around these days, so it's quite simple to do. It was hard in the old days. So the technologies are enabling us to create new tools if we are just prepared to think creatively about it and be intentional about how we learn, how we create learning experiences. It is harder, and it means that you have to allow the participant to create their own knowledge. That can be hard for some in a church where we like to form. But if we allow discussion, if we allow to steer, not steer, but rather let people inform themselves and build up the knowledge and skills, then we get a much more powerful learning experience. The last one of the theories that I will go into is the newest one. It's very recent. It was formed in 2005 by Just Siemens, and it's called connectivism. And it's actually a reaction to the postmodern way of thinking. It's more the post-postmodern or post-square that we talked about yesterday. So, well, not we, me and you. It's the thought that actually knowledge is not even objective. It's not even something that is true in a context. Any knowledge can be true. That's the postmodernist way of thinking. Anything can be true in any situation. And of course, that can be a very dangerous way of thinking. But on the other hand, that is how people are living right now. And yes, suddenly, knowledge is not important anymore. It is how do we learn more knowledge. The ability to learn more is more important than the what do I know at this point. The ability to step out of the point you are in right now and relearn and see what's around me and know that I can contact you because you know how to do such and such is more important than what I know myself. Nurturing and maintaining your connections, the networking, is very important. Decision-making becomes very important because if you are just standing in a spot trying to find out what is happening right now, you need to be able to make decisions. Now, why am I talking about that? Because it sounds more like something that you should be. But actually, you can create tools that enable people to connect and find connections in the network and learn from each other. Again, now we are actually removing the knowledge even further away. We are not only allowing a small group to build up knowledge, we are actually allowing the whole network to say things, to learn things together. It's very scary. Yes, even for me, I'm doing computer science. I don't care so much about computer science if somebody puts the words in vain of Java. I'm actually quite comfortable with that. I could critique it myself. But it is scary having 34,000 people out there who could potentially disrepute me at the moment, and I'm not watching because they are just on the website learning at the moment while I'm talking to you. It is scary, but it also means that we have a much more powerful learning opportunity. At a practical level, I know that I haven't really mentioned any practical levels here. And as I said in the beginning, that's because there are so many ways you can do it. So it doesn't really make sense. So therefore, I have put my email up there. If you want to connect with me, not in face-to-face because you find me scary, you can do that. I hear people do. I'm big and tall. I'm a Viking, after all. Come on. I've almost got horns. But I'm also around while here these days, so you can approach me if you find me, approachable. So come and talk to me if you want to have some hints or talk to me about some situations that you are gonna try and teach in. I'll try and help. I think one of the big advantages that we do have in the practical way is the whole advertising thing. Advertising is hard in education. But we have a church of empowered people, followers even, who probably should help us. So we have an advantage here in the church. I bring in copyright because actually legal things are important here. And I did use some graphics that are not mine. I can't paint. I can't do any art. So I have to steal it from elsewhere. And I'm allowed to because there's Creative Commons, but I therefore also have to show this copyright notice. So I've just done that to cover that. And thank you for listening.